information webinar on the Heritage Council's Community Heritage Grant Scheme for 2026. My name is Martina Malone and I'm joined today by the Heritage Council's Grant Manager, Amanda Ryan, and Shelley Gibson, who is providing Irish Sign Language interpretation for us. Just a small bit of housekeeping before we kick off. We are recording the webinar, so it will be available on our YouTube channel and on the community grants page on our website later this afternoon. The format of the webinar today is we'll have a presentation for Amanda, who will take you through the main scheme information, and then we'll have time for your questions and answers after that. So we'd ask you to pop any questions you have into the questions and answers box, which you'll find at the bottom of the screen there. As you can see, we are in webinar functions, so just make sure you put your questions in there, because you can't put up your hands or anything like that, unlike that what you can usually do at a Zoom meeting. So pop your questions in there and we'll get to them after Amanda's presentation. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Amanda.
Martina, can you share the presentation?
Yeah, of course.
We're just having a few technical difficulties this morning, so apologies. We're running a couple of minutes late. So once Martina starts, and as Martina said, welcome to everyone and thank you for attending. This morning's session, we hope that we'll be able to answer all your questions and provide some extra tips and advice about the scheme. So if you could, Martina, would you mind just putting it in, maybe I'm not seeing it, in the slide format? In the full screen format, if that's okay.
Settings. Is that, can you see it now?
Yes. Yeah. So the next page, or next slide, please. Okay, so who can apply? So the scheme is open for any not-for-profit organisation. So you can be a community, voluntary group, or a NGO, by NGO, non-governmental organisation. And that includes clubs, local parish councils, any kind of group that has a working current bank or credit union account and will be able to manage and undertake a project. So next slide, please, Martina. So what's the grant for? So it's project specific, so you can apply for support to protect, share and celebrate heritage in your community. Projects include conservation management plans, surveys, reports, audits on a diverse range of heritage aspects, be that biodiversity, built heritage, museums, cultural heritage, intangible heritage. You can also apply for training workshops, skills development, conservation works. Again, that can be cultural heritage, built heritage, biodiversity, also for digital heritage resources, and that includes digitization, oral history. On digitization or digital heritage resources, these must be freely and publicly available online. And you can also apply for specialized conservation equipment, and examples of that would be museum grade cases, archival materials, anything like that that helps to conserve or preserve heritage. Every project that is funded by the Heritage Council must include a National Heritage Week event, and you'll be asked about that in your application form, and you will have to give a commitment to undertake one. So next slide, please, Martina. So the time frame, we're open now, and closing date is the 20th of March at 8 p.m. and it's all via the grants online system. Now, the system will shut down at 8 o'clock, so make sure that you are well in time to submit your application before that deadline. Overall budget is approximately 1.5 million. Maximum grant request is 25,000. Match funding, you can apply for 100% once it's within that 25,000 budget mark. For assessment, there are 3 stages. The screening first, where we check applications have all the required supporting documentation, that all questions have been filled out, and that the applicant and project are eligible to move on to the next stage. First panel assessment, scoring and reviewing takes place, and a shortlist is created from the highest scoring applications. They're moved then to a second panel assessment, and it's from that that recommendations are made to our board for approval. Notification of outcome will be in early May in writing. And if you are offered funding, the project deadline for completion is the 13th of November 2026. Next slide, please, Martina. So just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have used our online system since 2024, you're fine. Use your login details, the email address you registered, and your password. If you can't remember your password, click forgot password. If you don't get an email fairly instantly, just check your spam or junk mail. We have had problems with firewalls and spam filters blocking emails. So check that first, and if you can't see it there, contact Grants at Heritage Council and we'll assist you. As I said, you should get that email fairly instantly within a few minutes. If you haven't used our online grant system since 2024, you will need to register as a new user, as this is a whole new system. We haven't brought over information from our previous grant system, so you will need to register your organisation or group. So to do that, first of all, check, there's a pointer there, check in the right-hand corner first to see if your organisation is, or I beg your pardon, I'm saying it right. Check first, type in your organisation name. If that doesn't come up with a record, you then need to click to add a new organisation, and you just fill in your contact details. Next slide, please, Martina. So just a word of caution, and this comes from experience from dealing with community groups in particular. The project timeline, May to November, is very tight. You're talking about approximately 6 months. So choose a project that's manageable and not complex. Go for a phased approach if possible, and ensure you have enough active members to share the workload. We find that well-intentioned community groups apply to us and they've really only 1 or 2 active members. One member may become indisposed and it's all left to the other member to carry the workload. You will be expected, if you are funded, to provide project updates to the Heritage Council. You'll be expected to do project updates on social media. You'll be expected to deliver a National Heritage Week event in August. And all these tasks require time and commitment, and it really is too much for one person to undertake. And we have seen it where it has impacted project delivery, meeting deadlines, and also the grant payment. So it's important that if you are planning to apply, that you have willing members within your committee to help carry the workload. So just on making your applications, can't emphasize it enough, make sure you read the application guidance document. This year, we've broadened or expanded it a bit more and included appendices, which include sample answers for various types of projects. We've also included guidance on letters of support. So along with the guidance document, please also download the appendices and go through those. There's some really good examples of how to answer questions, and also, as I said, guidance on preparing and requesting good letters of support. So you must answer all the template questions. All projects must include quotations, a scope of work, so that's basically what you're going to do, photographs, evidence that you have heritage advice in place, letters of support, a bank header for the applicant group, and permissions. And permissions include, if it's a protected structure, you'll either need a Section 57 declaration or a letter from your local authority to state that it's an exempted development. We have a checklist on the guidance document, so use that. There's, I think, numbers 1 to 7 are mandatory for all applications. And that means if you're applying for equipment, we'll say for some museums collection, you must tell us about the collection you're proposing to house in the display cabinet. You must show us photographs. The budget. Make sure that you enclose formal quotations for your lines of expenditure. Make sure to include VAT. Most of you won't be able to reclaim the VAT. If you are, you put in the cost net of VAT. But as I said, most of you won't be able to claim back VAT, and this can incur significant costs if you haven't budgeted for it. Also include your heritage advisors costs. And this is also a way for us to ensure that you have somebody in place to give advice if they aren't available within the project group. So we do like to see quotations from people who have heritage expertise that are going to either advise or supervise a project. Important one is to demonstrate that you're willing to communicate and promote your project with the public, and that includes trying to reach underrepresented groups that may not have knowledge of the heritage you're trying to conserve or develop. So please make sure that you come to the application with that in mind, that this isn't just about undertaking the project, it's also about public benefit, inclusiveness, and also about how you can mitigate against any potential environmental damage. So next slide, please, Martina. So how your application will be assessed. All applications that pass the screening stage will be assessed against 4 main criteria or headings. And the first one's heritage value. So that's where you need to show us why your heritage is significant and what difference your project will make. Good heritage practice is where you demonstrate that you have qualified professionals in place and that you're using sustainable methods that won't cause any additional harm to the environment. Value for money, it's that you provide clear, realistic costs, and these support your project outputs. And as I've just said, public benefit and inclusion is really important. And this is where a lot of good projects fall down. They've scored highly on the other 3 headings, but they fail to have a kind of a communications plan in place in terms of how they're going to showcase the project, how they're going to provide updates, how they're going to undertake a National Heritage Week event that will be inclusive, that will reach as many people as possible. So next slide, please, Martina. So just to run through the eligible, ineligible costs briefly. Eligible costs are any third-party costs that aren't connected to your group whatsoever, be that applicant group member or the group itself. Project dedicated contracted staff. So if you're a non-governmental organisation and you have a part-time staff member, and with the funding for the project, you intend to increase their hours so that they can undertake the project, you can apply for that, but you must include a letter from the CEO director, and there is details in the guidance document on what the content of that letter should include. We cover travel and subsistence costs for volunteers, and the rates are provided, and also reasonable costs for events. So if you're planning that National Heritage Week event and you want to provide tea, coffee and scones or light refreshments, you can include that as a cost. So ineligible costs, as I said, payment to the applicant group or a member providing goods or services. Voluntary work, so by voluntary work, I mean the work you undertake to manage the project, to provide updates. That all is considered voluntary and we don't cover costs for that. Any overheads, administrative costs, anything like that for established organisations, international travel, costs incurred before the offer date in early May, and any alcohol or merchandise. So next slide. So just general advice, again, I've written here a second time, read the guideline documents, can't stress that enough. Start with a clear aim, why this project is needed. Do engage with your local authority, heritage officer, biodiversity officer, or architectural conservation officer, or indeed your local archivist, depending on the nature of your project. And we would strongly recommend that you have a letter of support from one of those individuals. Contact qualified professionals early. It's a small pool of professionals and a lot of their work for the year gets planned early. So if you have a project in mind and you are going to apply, do reach out as soon as possible. This is important for protected structures or national monuments. Do check with your local authorities about permissions. As I said, at a minimum for any kind of protection, we do need a letter from the local authority to state that you're exempted from permissions. Start planning and gathering your information early. So that includes photographs, quotations, letters of support. The application form does take time, so please, if you haven't registered and you intend on applying, do register as quickly as possible. Get the application form started with just the basic detail, start collecting your information and uploading it. As I said, it will shut down automatically at 8 p.m. on the closing date, so don't be caught out by last-minute technical problems or information not uploading. It's always a good idea to get someone else to look over your application, to open uploads, to ensure that they upload it correctly. Next slide, please, Martina. And just a word of caution especially for grantees that have applied to us before and have projects that have been done on a phased basis. Don't assume that the assessors looking at your application this year will know about your project. We use a varied pool of people and they might necessarily know you or the great work you're doing. So make sure that you approach the application on that basis, that it's almost like a first time applying. And that's more or less put yourself in the shoe of the grant assessor. And can't emphasize it enough about the timeline. Be realistic about what you can achieve within the timeline. We prefer to see smaller phase projects coming in than a larger, more complex project. This will go down in the scoring as it will not be feasible and there will be concerns about it being delivered and finished within our time frame. Next slide, please, Martina. So just to let you know, there's a useful resources section on our website. The link to it is on our funding page. So there's lots of different publications and tips and advice that you should definitely take a look at. Next slide, Martina, please. And just also, I always put this in on community group webinars. The Wheel, if you haven't already reached out to the Wheel, I strongly suggest you do. It's free for groups that don't have an annual income below 25,000 and 75 euros thereafter. It's really worthwhile, even if you have to pay the 75 euros. They give fantastic training advice. It'll open up huge amount of resources to you, and it's really good for even just a small club, group, it doesn't matter, really, really helpful, and strongly advise that you reach out to them. And I think this is our last slide after this one, Martina. Yep, so continue to check the Community Grants Scheme page on our website. If there's any updates or anything that comes out of this meeting in terms of further tips and advice, we'll post it there. And if you're in doubt about anything, please reach out to us at grants@Heritage Council, and do so sooner than later. As I said, especially with uploads and things like that, people can have difficulty. So do reach out to us and we're happy to help. So that's it. Thank you. So if you have any questions, we'll certainly be happy to take them now.
Yeah, I'll have a look at those for you now, Amanda. Is signage eligible for grant aid?
Yeah, not traditional signboards, no. What we're going more towards an inclusive and accessible approach. So if you came to us with an idea that address that, and there's universal principles, or there's design principles for universal design, that it would have to meet those. So we wouldn't be looking at traditional signage boards, no.
Okay. Would the grant cover the employment of a seasonal staff tour guide for a heritage centre in Ireland's ancient East?
No, not really. That would be more considered an overhead. This grant scheme is very project specific in that there must be a start, a completion, and an output.
Can companies limited by guarantee CLGs apply?
Absolutely, yes, yes. And I should say there, you don't have to be a registered charity or anything like that to apply. You don't have to be a dedicated heritage-focused organisation. The main things are you are set up for the benefit of the community, as in you're not for profit and you're not connected in any way with a government body.
Would a greenway project putting signs along a greenway regarding heritage, nature and conservation be eligible?
As the last question, if they're traditional signage boards, no, we don't fund those. It would have to be something that had was inclusive or met with people with barriers or things like that. So not traditional signage boards, no. If it was tactile or if it included some kind of audio, we would consider it, but not the traditional kind, no.
Can you confirm that website creation or development is eligible?
It is eligible, but again, accessibility is a key issue there. It has to be designed to meet those standards. We also will be looking for ICT specialists to undertake the work. So you'd have to have a scope of service from them with your application, and that should show kind of the user journey, accessibility issues, also sample graphics, sample layout, that kind of thing. So yes, it would, yeah, but it would have to be also, I should stress, it would have to be a heritage dedicated site. It could be just a site for a community group that has some pages with heritage. The main focus of the website would have to be heritage.
Under skills development, does the teacher, say that they're going to appoint for this course, have to have specific qualifications, or would someone with lifelong skills in the area be acceptable in order to ensure that the skill gets passed on to a new generation?
Yes, absolutely. We would be very open to applications that use what we call master crafts people. So yes, yeah, that would be very acceptable and welcomed.
The next is from Paula Theatre Company. We are a theatre company at Dalkey Castle and we provide historical characters for living history tours, and they also do an outreach program. And Paula would like to know, would this funding include a creative, historical, cultural event?
So that by that I suppose you mean a form of interpretation. We have funded projects like that before. If you want to pop us an email with a bit more detail, Paula, that would be helpful. But we have funded kind of theatrical where there was actors involved. But we'd have to see. It would be better if you sent us a quick email with project proposal, and I could check with my colleagues.
Would digitisation projects cover ebook or PDF publishing?
No, not really. No, this is more about digitization of records that have an existing catalogue.
Okay. If somebody applied for our Heritage Organisation Support Fund, can they also apply for a Heritage Community Grant? Is there a lot of competition, and what are the possibilities to get funding? Can we include project manager, administration and marketing costs for a training programme?
If you've applied for a Heritage Organisations Fund, we should be able to, the plan is to let you know about your application in early March. And if you haven't been successful, yes, you're absolutely welcome to apply for funding under the community heritage. You can indeed, if you want, you can start an application, but if you're awarded under one scheme, you won't be able to get funding under the other. Sorry, Martina, the second part to that about the actual, what the funding was for?
Oh, I'm sorry now, I've clicked it off. Let me just
Was for I suppose just while Martina's there, it would have to be project
project manager, administration and marketing costs for a training program. They want to know, are those costs eligible?
It would, if it's project specific and it's a training event, it would have to be that it's not towards existing employment costs, like that these are not salaried people. Yeah, the focus of the community grant scheme is very different to the organizational scheme, which focuses on things like salaries, overheads, that kind of thing, whereas the community is about projects, funding projects. So you would have to make a case that the project wouldn't happen without these people, and project management as well. It's quite a loose term. You would have to expand that a bit in terms of what the job would entail, and definitely it would have to be for contracted hours specific for that project and not existing salaried staff. But again, if you'd like to send us a quick email with a bit more detail, we could give you a more informed response.
Rowan is just back on. We had an earlier question from him about covering the employment of a seasonal staff tour guide, for which we said no,
yes,
that those costs aren't eligible. And he's just clarified to say that they are a voluntary community group that maintains and runs a heritage centre, and their existing curator has retired, leaving the centre unmanned. But I think even so, the cost isn't eligible.
Unfortunately, no, it wouldn't be. No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Do we have a list of advisors?
What kind of advisors? There's different, it depends on the nature of your project. For instance, if it's conservation works, the Irish Georgian Society have a list, a register of people, conservation people, including architects and craftspeople. The RIAI have a list of conservation architects. You also have we'll say, for instance, for museum practitioners in terms of conservation of collections. There's, sorry now, Martina, I could be right. It's ICRI, ICRI.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes, ICRI. So there are different professional bodies that you can reach out to. We ourselves don't give recommendations for one private consultant over another, but there are registered bodies, professional bodies that do provide listings. So if there's somebody specific you're looking for, you can shoot us off an email, or you can ask a follow-up question.
Okay. How many quotes do you need to put in for your grant? say of
That's
25,000.
Yeah, one quote is fine, but you have to be. I mean, it's always good to say that you have sought 3 quotes, and we only look for 1 quote because often it's difficult enough just to get 1 quote. But for your own self, it is good to seek out a competition to make sure that you're getting good value for money. But in terms of meeting our criteria, 1 quote.
In terms of allocation, was the full 1.5 million allocated to community projects last year?
And I would say more.
More.
We if we have reserve funding or funding becomes available, we do try to reach out to groups that may not have got offered funding under the first round but scored highly. So if funding becomes available, now that doesn't always happen. So excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat, but yes, excuse me.
Just while you're getting a drink there, Amanda, John is wondering about a bank header. So that's basically the top part of your bank statement with your community group name on it, which it's just in line with the Heritage Council's anti-fraud policy. When we're doing payments, we have to make sure that the money that we're paying the grant into is in the name of the group that we're providing the grant to. So at the top of you don't have to show the detail of your bank statement. It's just literally the header, which shows the name and address of the group. It shows your IBAN, your SOR code, your account number. So it's just that top part of the bank statement that we will need if you are offered the grant.
Thanks, Martina. It can also be a credit union.
Credit union as
well.
Union
as well. Lots of groups have credit union accounts. So yes, you have to have that.
Yeah, so if you got funding for a specific project in the past, is it feasible to apply building on the same project and apply for a new phase of work as part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, 100%. But again, just be mindful that the assessors mightn't be familiar. So do explain the background, provide the context. And if there was, for instance, maybe a conservation report done that made recommendations and you're now working on that on a phased basis, do put in the excerpt or quote the plan that it came from and the relevant recommendations. So yeah, treat it, as I said, like it's a first application.
Okay. Colin is wondering, can several committee members access the application via the system, to review it and maybe working it together?
Not at the same time. We had somebody this week actually doing that, and it did cause error messages. So one person needs to log on at a time to fill it out, but anyone various people can log on using the logon details from wherever, their own workstation, but be mindful that you're not doing it at the same time.
Is the portal based on a save and exit? In other words, do you have to just type out the full application in one go and submit it in one session?
No, you can save as you go along, and then indeed I would advise that you start it earlier and start filling in kind of easier details, and you can always come back then and edit and fix it. So no, you can log in and log out as many times, and as the previous person asked, you might want another committee member to fill out one question. So once you log on, they can log on from their device and fill out a question. So no.
Okay. Given that the project will take place between May and November, does that mean the project is featured in Heritage Week the following year? No.
No, you will have to showcase it in Heritage Week this year. Now, a lot of projects may not be completed, so you can plan your National Heritage Week event around that fact, maybe provide updates, showcase why the project is important, what results have been found to date. So yeah, no, it'll have to be this year because that's part of a condition of funding, and we actually look for evidence of that. We look to make sure that you've actually registered it on the National Heritage Week website, and also we look for photographs of the event afterwards. I should also say, especially for built heritage projects where you're carrying out repairs, Some groups have provided a site visit during National Heritage Week, where the contractor or the architect was on site to give a little talk on the conservation work, what was being done, and to answer any questions. And they always proved really successful, and people were really interested. And even if I know some groups will come and say there's health and safety issues, that's fine. You can move to another venue, a local church hall or a community hall, but all grantees must undertake an in-person event to showcase their project during National Heritage Week. It's non-negotiable.
Sophie is wondering, they're a social enterprise that operates out of a Section 39 organisation partially funded by the HSE. Would they be eligible? That's
a complex
yes.
question. I think by the nature, oh dear, I think some of you might need to email us. Yeah, I'm not even familiar about Section 39, I'll be honest. So you might need to email us, Sophie. Sorry, I can't answer you straight off the cuff.
Okay, this Elizabeth has a query about timescale. So they're applying for a conservation plan on a church. Must this person be a conservation architect, as they are scarce and may not have the availability in the timescale May to November? Is there any means to carry the funding approval until they are available to carry out the work?
No, we're very caught by annual budgets, while towards the end of the year we will be looking for updates from people in the summer and also in the autumn. While we have a bit of flexibility for a couple of weeks, we can't carry projects over until the following year. We don't have that flexibility from our parent department who provide our budget. So I mean, if you think it does have to be a conservation architect that undertakes, and I assume you mean a conservation management plan rather than a conservation plan. So you could shop around and seek quotations from other conservation architects, but a quick answer is no, we don't have the flexibility to carry funding or commitment to a grant offer into the following year.
If the heritage professional is based in another country, is this eligible, or will it adversely affect the scoring?
No, as long as they are qualified, and I suppose the assessors may ask the question, why aren't you, in terms of just sustainability and in case this person has to travel to Ireland, just in terms of why aren't you seeking professional help in Ireland? If you can make the case that that isn't available in Ireland, and sometimes that is the case, that you need to go to the UK or indeed mainland Europe, yes, no, that will be considered, but you would have to give context why you're going outside Ireland for a professional.
Okay. Do we give feedback on the application if it's not successful?
Yes, we give the scoring, and we also give a short narrative on where scoring went down.
Can a festival apply for hosting a heritage event?
I'm not clear on what is meant by heritage event. We are the only type of events that we look at they have to be skills development. So that would be training or workshops, which are very hands-on, engaging. They're not kind of lecture style, or there's a learning outcome. So if you'd need to build the case around that.
Okay. Can conservation of cultural heritage works include participatory arts and traditional festival events? Can an ongoing project be considered if it is an annual delivery? Are there any heritage festivals or participatory arts events funded under this scheme? And are the costs of heritage advisors eligible?
Again, I'm not really clear. When the funding really isn't for kind of festivals. There's other streams of funding out there for that, like Creative Ireland, and ours is more about skills development and knowledge sharing. So if you had something in mind that was met that criteria, yes, it could be considered, and yes, the cost of the trainers or the qualified, the craft people could be included in that, yes. But again, if you want to send us off an email to give us a bit more about what is in mind, we would be able to answer you a bit better.
Okay. Can two groups submit an application together?
You can, but one would have to
Take the
take,
lead.
yes, yeah. What I would suggest is one that is willing to manage the grant, be the applicant, and that within the narrative of the or the body of the application form, that you include that you're working in cooperation with another group, and that you include a letter from them to say that, and that would be a very welcome application, that two groups working together. But one would have to take the over the management, and in terms of housekeeping, bank details, all that. So it would just be one group.
Okay. Would rewiring a church be eligible for grant aid?
Not
No.
really, no. Our funding focuses really on the heritage aspects of the existing fabric. So usually where funding goes to buildings, it's to make the fabric of the building watertight and secure. And that's usually through roof repairs, structural repairs, things like that, windows. But rewiring wouldn't be considered a priority.
Would a heritage documentary be covered?
It could under the digital resources, but again, it would have to be, the output would have to be freely available. You'd have to show where it would be available to the public. And yes, it could be considered, yes. And we have funded documentaries in the past, but you'd have to have a program outline and a professional film organization behind you, or supplier, I should say.
There's a lot of questions about signage, Amanda, here. Sorry, we still have over 100 questions, so I'm trying to kind of group the questions together. So apologies if I'm taking a little bit longer to read them out.
Traditional signage, no. If you can come up with something that, if you're thinking about something that's more tactile, as I said, thinking inclusiveness, accessibility, yes, we consider it, but those traditional signs that you see, and they're lovely signs in parks or along greenways or riverbanks, no, we're not funding those.
Okay. Do we require competitive quotes?
No, just one quote, but for yourself, we would advise, if you can get a few quotes, just to be sure that you're getting good value for money.
Okay. What does cultural heritage cover? Does it include music, sean-nós, singing, dancing?
Oh yes, that's absolutely, yes.
Sorry, I have a couple along the same theme, so I'm trying to kind of group them together. For a church roof, could you apply for part of the project? Because it would probably take longer than 6 months. So
absolutely, yes, and we'd encourage that. And now I know scaffolding and things like that are an enormous cost, and it's often more cost effective to try and get as much done. But unfortunately, because we have such a short window, yes, if you want to apply for a phased approach, just make sure that's very explicit in what you're looking for the funding for in your application. While you may include an overall brief, for the full complement of works, be sure to be clear about what aspect as well that you're seeking funding for 2026.
If your project covers two aspects, say for example a biodiversity and a digital resources kind of element, should you just apply for one or both on the same application?
You can apply for both, but again, it just comes down to be realistic about what you can achieve within the time frame. But we have funded projects that have two or more elements, but just for yourself as well in terms of delivery and because you will, as part of the application, you will have to fill out a kind of a project plan or timeline. So that will be obvious in that if, time is stretched or if it's not possible capacity-wise within that time frame. But yes, you can apply for the two elements.
Okay, a couple of questions about roofs actually. Roofs are covered as part of the grant
They are.
scheme.
Yes, they be considered priority. Yes.
So just
But just one thing where people fall down, while a contractor may be considered a conservation contractor in terms of they have worked on lots of old churches or buildings, you do need to have a separate conservation architect supervising the project and to sign off when that phase or the project is completed. So all works that involve repairs to buildings do need the contractor and also a conservation architect to supervise. And those both costs can be included in your budget.
Okay, somebody else is wondering here, the theme for Heritage Week this year is Heritage at Risk. Does the event need to tie in with that? I think you can embrace that theme or not. It's an optional, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah. But for our purposes and the condition of the grant, it has to be relative to the project that's been funded.
Yeah, a couple are inquiring about church windows, stained glass windows.
Yes, absolutely. They're eligible, yes. But I would draw your attention to there's stained glass windows publication on our resources pages. So do look at that because there's some very good advice there on kind of do's and don'ts. And so do have a look at that as well. And yes, we do fund projects for stained glass windows.
Okay. Where a project involves removal of ivy, an ecologist has already done a survey to assess that there's no bird or bat activity. Can they start this work before September?
You'd need to when you're applying, you'd need to submit the copy of the bird bat survey with them, and that's something if they're not present, that's something really that could be a condition on the grant that don't start the work until after September. But that would be more for assessors to look at than for me to comment on now without knowing the full details of the project. But if you are applying, do make sure to include a copy of that report. And I just sorry, Martina, when everyone's asking about buildings, it is really important that you've made contact with your local authority. A lot of those buildings are protected, if not national monuments. So at a minimum, make sure that you've made contact with your local authority and that if you can, now I know local authorities aren't always, and they have their own job to do, the timeline with our grants. Even if you can show that you've made contact and you've asked for a letter to show that you're exempted from planning permission, that would suffice. Even if that letter, ideally a letter from the local authority should be included with your application to say that you don't need permission, but if you can't get it before the timeline, at least evidence that you have actually been in contact and that it's pending or you're waiting on it.
Somebody's asking about, do you have to register your event for Heritage Week before you apply for funding? So I can answer that really. The site doesn't open for registrations until May, so you can't. But as Amanda said in her presentation there, you do need to confirm with us and give us the link to your Heritage Week event when you're submitting your progress report if you are funded over the summer. Now, sorry, Amanda, we have so many questions. I'm not sure we'll get to them all, but I'm trying to group a couple of them together. Let me see. Conservation report. Yeah, you've already covered that. Regarding letters of support, aside from the County Council Heritage and Biodiversity officers, who else would be good kind of deemed appropriate referees who can
Okay,
provide
well,
a letter of
maybe
support?
it may be another community group that's in your area or another organisation you've worked with, local businesses, anyone really at local schools that are familiar with the work you do and are, know about the project that you're proposing and fully support it. So it just, and assessors do read these letters. You get letters that are very short and letters that are very detailed, and assessors do like to see a kind of a wide variety. So even we say two is the minimum. So if you can get more, all the better. But two, and I would caution against getting letters from local county councillors while it's strictly not canvassing. It's to, it would be better if it was just from other groups or schools, businesses in your locality or other organisations.
You mentioned in your presentation that you can apply, if you're going to do tea and coffee, some catering costs for your
Yes.
Heritage Week event. And somebody's just wondering, is that just an estimate, budget, quote, what?
Well, if you can get some kind of a quote, that ideally that would be better. You could also, if you aren't able to get a quote, you could even look up a website of a local, somewhere local that gives prices. Really, what you're trying to show there is that you haven't plucked costs out of the air and that they're based on some kind of benchmark. So as I said, ideally that you would have some kind of a quote, even if it's an email, or it doesn't have to be on formal letterhead, but that it shows it comes from an outside supplier. That would be the ideal. Otherwise, screen grabs from a website, catering website or whatever that shows the costs, or a hotel or whatever.
Okay. Then this one is on the grant system itself. It has a save and a submit button side by side on each page. Does the submit button have to be pressed at the end of each page? And what happens if it's pressed inadvertently?
That's a good question. Our submit button actually shouldn't be till we can look at that. Really, the submit button, I'd imagine, should be at the very end. But yeah, no, we'll save it as you go along. If you accidentally click submit, we can unsubmit it for you. You won't be able to unsubmit it, but just reach out to us. It will mean that you can no longer work on it. So if you hit that button by accident too quickly, it probably wouldn't let you submit, because you'd get a load of messages saying you haven't filled out this question or you haven't done this. It will only allow submission when all questions have been answered and you've ticked declarations. But just in case you do it by accident too soon, you can reach out to us and we'll unsubmit it very quickly.
How many update reports do we need to submit if the application is successful, and how soon after the award can you submit a final report?
Oh gosh, that's a very eager person. Once you're offered a grant, you will have to first of all accept terms and conditions online. You'll have to reconfirm bank details, excuse me, that we can import into our payment system. That's the first thing. After that, we will be in contact, and then you can begin your project. After that, we'll be in contact with you possibly mid-July to submit an update report. That's very short question of kind of, are you on target, are you on budget, and to confirm your National Heritage Week event, and give us a link to where you've registered it on the site. And really, I suppose the earliest you could be looking at putting in a final report will be after National Heritage Week, because that is a condition of grant. So we want to see that that actually has taken place and that you've met that condition. So late August would be kind of the earliest that we would be looking for a final report. I should say, and it's probably in the questions, and I'm surprised it hasn't come up yet, on the payment. Unfortunately, we don't give advance payments. So when I know other bodies or funders would give money once your grant is awarded, they give a certain percentage. We don't do that, but you can claim a certain amount from us through progress reports. So if you, for instance, have got a short report done, a bat survey report done, you can apply to get reimbursement for that once you show us a copy of the report and the invoice. So you can do stage payments. Now, in certain circumstances, if you can make the case that you need an advance payment in terms of, we'll say, supplier is not going to go ahead unless they have 50% down payment, you can make a request for that, and we look at that on an individual basis.
Would biodiversity walks and talks for the public be eligible?
There would have to be, it would have to be, see, that's very, we would expect that as a National Heritage Week event as part of a bigger project. So that, unless there was some kind of more in-depth training involved, really, that would actually be considered as some kind of a, a National Heritage Week event.
Can a non-profit that is involved in Irish heritage research based abroad apply?
It depends on the project. If the project is based in Ireland, you can apply, but I'm not, when you say research, the funding really is, we'd have to see a bit more specifics about the project itself. But the applicant doesn't necessarily need to be based in Ireland, as long as the project output, project benefit is in Ireland, as in, the Republic.
Sorry, I'm paraphrasing this question. Regarding the need for ongoing heritage advice on the project and for the application to demonstrate this, does this need to be a private contractor, or can ongoing support and contact from your local heritage officer suffice?
It depends on the project. Now, if the heritage office, some heritage officers do have the capacity to be involved in community projects, and that's fine as long as they put that in the letter of support, that it's more than a letter of support, that they're actually going to have a hands-on approach with the project. Now, that isn't always the case because they just don't have the capacity. It also depends on the project. If it's a building project, you do need an independent conservation architect involved. And if it's a digital heritage project, for instance, you're doing a film or whatever, it could be that the heritage officer, if they're willing to give, give more hands-on approach to the project, that could suffice. So it does depend on the complexity of the project and the capacity of the heritage officer. But definitely in the case of built heritage, where there's repairs being done to a building, there has to be an independent person involved, as in a conservation architect, to oversee it.
Okay. For a digitisation project, is a conservation assessment automatically required when submitting a digitisation grant? That was the only part of feedback this person received last year. So they're just wondering if that's that's a requirement.
Well, if you want to reach out with the specific reference number, we can look at the application again and just see. I don't want to comment until I kind of know what the project is about. But I know for digitisation, you do have to have evidence of a catalogue has commenced or is in place. And especially for digitization or, you know, archiving, any kind of projects like that, the assessors do like to see properly qualified people involved.
If you were a group that was using a protected building for meetings, could you apply then for works to that building?
You could, but again, you'd have to, who owns the building? You'd have to have consent from them. Is it a publicly owned building? And that the same would apply for having that letter or Section 57 declaration. There would be permission issues there, and definitely a letter of consent from whoever the owner is. But yes, you could. And community groups have applied successfully to us in the past for repairs to publicly owned, as in local authority owned buildings that they are using.
Okay. Can you use the grant to fund a book or a booklet?
No.
No.
We don't look at printed publications at all.
Okay. Can educational bodies such as secondary schools apply for this, or primary schools? No.
No, primary schools, we have a Heritage in School scheme, and indeed that's rolling out to secondary schools. So our funding is concentrated there. Also, any public sector type bodies are excluded from applying for this scheme.
Mm-hmm. Are there any issues with contractors, you know, as part of their cost pushing in for travel and subsistence costs and maybe an overnight stay?
Well, they should build that into
Their
their
fee.
fee. Yeah, so that's you know, that's not an issue if it comes in.
Okay, sorry.
That
Now
format.
we actually still have over 100 questions, so
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
trying to
Take some
skim through them,
water.
but I
Yeah.
know I haven't seen some of these at all yet. So sorry if you think we're ignoring you. We're not. We're getting through them as quickly as we can. Would funding be available for family days, which aim to showcase the traveller heritage of the community? They would be hoping to engage like tinsmiths for demonstrations, and they believe he's the last tinsmith in the country.
Yes, because that would be considered a kind of training and transfer of knowledge, skills. So yes, it would. You'd have to do a separate Heritage Week event as well, but yeah, that would be considered, you know, a training program. So yes.
How many letters of support would an application need to have ideally?
Two. I mean, we don't, you know, it's not the case that, oh, you get more marks if you have 5 as opposed to 2. But what letters of support also demonstrate is, you know, community engagement. So it can, you know, if you make a statement, for instance, in that section of your application saying, you know, we are going to include the local school or the local active retirement group in our National Heritage Week event, a letter attached saying, yes, we're looking forward to this project, or, you know, we've actually the group have actively engaged. That adds a level of, you know, that demonstrates that that you're not just saying these things, that there's evidence there. So if you think a letter will back up your plans, absolutely, but yeah, two is more than acceptable. And often people struggle to get 2. So I would say definitely on anything to do with local authority letters or other agency letters, definitely reach out sooner rather than later. Because heritage officers, biodiversity officers, conservation officers will be inundated with requests. So make sure you get yours in early.
Okay. Essential capital works, yes, such as roof repairs, glazing, replacement, structural improvements. Yeah, they're all, yes, they're
yes,
all.
yes.
I'm trying to type answers. Sorry if my answers are very short, but I'm trying to get through them as well. Can you explain more about the Heritage Advisor role, and are there guidelines for fees regarding Heritage Advisors?
Well, when we say heritage, this is one that causes But it can cause confusion every year. Heritage Advice, we want to make sure, for instance, if you are doing we'll say a website, a heritage website of your locality, besides the IT specialist that's actually undertaking the web development, who is giving you heritage advice there? How do we know that the content is going to be accurate, factual? And so that's where you would need to show, look, and that might necessarily not need to be a professor in UCC. It could be a local historian. So within your group that's willing to do it for free, they're interested in the project. So in that case, it could be something like that. That person is providing the insight advice for the heritage content in that project. Also within the group, there's often heritage professionals within a community group. So you could have a working archaeologist that's actually happens to be a member of your committee as well. So if they're willing to undertake supervision, the only thing is it would have to be for free. If they're willing to undertake supervision of the project, that's acceptable. If it's a project where, as I said, for built heritage, that definitely has to be supervised. Supervision really is only where the physical works are being undertaken. Heritage advice is more where, I suppose, would be more for kind of digital type projects, where we want to make sure that what you're producing, that the content is actually good. And I just thought something there. It could also be the person that the supplier that you're engaging could also be the person that's advising you. So for instance, if you're getting a biodiversity survey done, you're engaging an ecologist, he or she has given you a quotation. There is no need there for you to go along and get somebody else to supervise that ecologist's work. That ecologist will double up as your project supervisor or your project advisor, I should say, your project advisor, and also the person that's actually undertaking the work, the survey.
Can our group receive and apply for other grants, example, local county council heritage grants?
You can, yes. Now you will have to disclose that in your application, and indeed, if you get funding, you'll have to disclose that also in the drawdown. And in some cases, it's vital that you get other funding because costs may be way outside the 25,000 euro mark, and some groups would also get community monuments funding as well. So you will have to show, if your project will say is costing 50,000 and you're looking for 25 from us, you will have to show where you're going to make up the shortfall.
Can professional costs, say from somebody traveling from the UK, it's very specific skill not available in Ireland, so would that be covered then as part of the eligible costs?
They should build that into their quotation, their fee, rather than you applying for a separate kind of international travel. That should be built into their fee. And again, just to add context to your application, why you need to go to the UK for somebody rather than here.
Can you make multiple applications?
I would suggest it's very time consuming. I don't think you'll have time to make multiple applications, and I would say concentrate on the priority project for this year.
Does having an application with the Community Monuments Fund have an effect on receiving Heritage Council funding?
You can. We have funded projects where both were included, but I would say, because you probably are preparing information for the Community Monuments Fund, make sure in your application to us that you're very clear about what works you're seeking the Heritage Council to fund and what you'll be seeking from community monuments, so that it's very clear to assessors. I just jumped onto the questions there
Yeah,
while you were reading. I see
know.
one here from, can we download the whole form to review the questions and plan answers? The appendices includes all the questions now. It is in PDF and it includes sample answers as well.
Sorry, I'm trying to answer some of these, so to spare your voice, that because we still have over 90 questions there.
Oh my gosh!
On the Q&A, I know we're not going to get to all of them, so myself and Amanda might review these after this webinar and just check on the ones we haven't answered, and we might put something up on the website.
I think that would be good, and I think it would be good to put something up about the Heritage Advisor Supervisor question.
Yeah, and signage.
Yes, signage. A lady here now is asking about Braille signage, and yes, that's certain. That would be considered. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. People are just asking for your slides after this webinar.
Oh yes,
we can put those up as well.
Those up, and a recording as well.
Okay. Let me check.
Yeah, conservation management plan for disused canal. Yes, that would be considered.
Thanks for all your lovely comments in the middle of everything too. Are multiple progress reports and multiple stage payments possible?
Yes, but I'll be honest with you, we're a team of two.
Just the two of us.
Yeah, there's just the two of us, and 3 payments throughout the project life cycle, 4 maximum, but 3 would be kind of where groups have cash flow issues. That would be kind of standard. So that would be maybe towards the beginning, middle, and the end, and perhaps an additional one. But that would be all we could absorb, and there would be no point telling you otherwise. We just wouldn't have the capacity.
Amanda, I think will we leave it there, and then
we
might review the questions. We still have 97 on our list.
Oh my gosh! Yes,
we'll be here for another half an hour, I'd say, easily.
Yes.
We don't want to keep people too long, but we can kind of look at them thematically and kind of group our answers, and we might
group our answers and then put up a
frequently asked questions.
Questions on beside the download on the Community Heritage page. So do keep an eye out on that page, because as things come, we'll keep updating that frequently asked questions, and if anything else arises, we'll pop it up there as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much for attending, and we're sorry we didn't get to all questions, but we will get to them in another format. And as I said, reach out to us. It is easier. I know people like to phone, but it is easier to get us at grants@heritagecouncil.ie. And I hope you have a lovely afternoon and enjoy the rest of the weekend. And if you haven't registered, get registering and start your application as soon as possible. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.